I just wanted to ask a question. What do you do whenever it is time to graduate and move on? So really it's like learn the lesson, graduate, and move on. Move on. What do we do? What do we do when it is time to graduate and move on? You know, because in hindsight, I know plenty of times whenever I really did learn the lesson. However, I wasn't quite ready to like let it go and move on. Then it became a instance of where I stayed longer than I should have. I stayed too long because I didn't want to just like give it up. You know, so do we stay too long after we learn the lesson and it's time to move on? Or are we the ones that learn the lesson and keep it moving? You know, just go ahead and do what you got to do and move on. Now, in today's time, I learn my lessons and I move on. I keep it moving. I just keep it moving because I am like 53 at this point in life. And I've just learned so much, you know, because guess what? Whenever a person, place, or thing, well, I'm not even going to say a person, place, or thing at this point. I'm going to say whenever another person is ready for you to move on, you can tell by the way the climate changes. You can tell by the way they begin to interact with you. You can just tell by the way that you begin to perceive the way that the energies that this person is giving to you, the way this person may talk to you, the way this person may just tolerate you and no longer like celebrate you. You can tell. So when it's time to move on, do you move on? Do you move on, or do you continue to stay? So I remember back in the day, it was this song by Fantasia that I used to like really like. And the name of the song was Lose. Sometimes you gotta lose to win again. I used to really like that song because when I was going through like a really life-changing event in my life, that song right there was like an alma mater for me. It was an alma mater for me. I mean, that song like carried me through. The song is like, sometimes we have to lose to win again. You know, sometimes we have to lose to win again. Man, I really did like the loop in that song. You know, sometimes you gotta lose to win again. I used to just say that, and listen to that song. And now, in hindsight, although that song was just so prevalent to me, now I just know that a lot of things are not really losses. Some things is just something you have to sacrifice in order to move on to the next season. Sometimes it's not necessarily a loss, but it's a sacrifice. You know, I'm willing to give this up in order to find this comfort. I'm willing to give this up. I am willing to give this up. I'm willing to give this house up. I'm willing to give this job up. I'm willing to give this car up. I'm willing to give this life up, this lifestyle up, and everything that came with this lifestyle in order to gain peace, in order to gain freedom. So yeah, y'all, you have to like learn the lesson, graduate, and move on. Whenever you learn the lesson and you really learn that lesson and you graduate with that knowledge, you graduate with that knowledge base, you have to use that knowledge base whenever it comes up. Whenever the situations arise where you need to like use the knowledge base that you have learned, you're gonna have to use that knowledge base. You can't go back into like beggarly ways like you never knew the answers. You can't go back to that point to like you just never knew the answers. You cannot do it. You cannot go back to that, because that's just like diverting back to that victim place, to the place of victim. So yeah, we have to learn the lesson, graduate, and move on. Move on. Keep it moving. Keep it moving. I know people who have actually let everything, basically everything go, and pack up what they did and just move to a whole nother place to find a safe place. And not necessarily a safe place from any domestic violence, but just a safe place for them. A safe place where their peace was. A safe place where they could walk and live in freedom. I know people who have actually done that. I know people who have actually done that. So yeah, you have to like learn the lessons, graduate, move on, and not stay, not continue to stay whenever you have worn out the welcome, or whenever the welcome is no more an open door anymore. You know what I mean? You have to like be willing to like say, okay, my time here is done. And it's okay. You don't always stay in the same place. You shouldn't even stay in the same place. You know, whenever you complete the 8th grade, guess what? It's time to move on to the 9th grade. You don't have to continue to stay in that 8th grade. Whenever it's time to move to college, you're not in high school anymore. You're not in the 12th grade. Move on. Move on. If you're grown kids, grown old adults now, and you're still living at home with your mom and them because you don't want to move, you don't want to take responsibilities, it's time to move on. It's time to move on. It's time to move on. Learn some lessons and move on. Learn the lessons, graduate from that place and move on. Move on. Become a functional adult. Become functional and move on. If you're in a bad relationship, girlfriend, boyfriends, I'm not talking about marriages. I don't condone divorces. That is totally up to the parties, okay? But if you're in a toxic relationship, whether it's friendships, boyfriend, girlfriend, and if it's toxic, and if the opportunities have shut the door and it's time to move on, you know when it's time to move on. Just move on. Don't overstay. Don't overstay, because overstaying does nothing but aggravates the wound, aggravates the issue. Okay, whenever you overstay, it's not good. It's not good. All right, so learn the lesson, graduate, and move on. And if you don't have a social filter and you can't tell whenever you have worn out your welcome, you know, with a man, whenever you've worn out your welcome, you don't get the same respect. You just don't get the same feeling from him. You don't get the same open arms from him anymore, or vice versa from a woman. If you're a man, you don't get the same energy from them anymore. If it's a job, you're burned out. You know, the co-workers or the managers or whatever, nothing's on your side anymore. It's time to move on. If it's an old car, if it's a car, the car just continuously breaks down. You know, it's like totally done. It's costing you like way more to keep this car running than what it should. Then it's time to let it go. It's time to move on. It's time to learn the lesson and just move on from it. So it goes all the way across the board, y'all. It's all the way across the board. So turn on your filter. Turn on your social filters. Turn on your social filters and discern the environments. Discern what's going on. Discern people's thoughts and the way that people are like reacting to you now. Just discern it. You can tell if you're being just tolerated or if you are just genuinely being celebrated for the person that you are. So, with that being said, I just want to say again, learn the lesson, graduate, and move on. All right? Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And please share and please subscribe. And until we meet again, thank you.